In this audio, I would like to talk about the subjunctive mood. As a reminder, in the Greek language, there is something called mood, and that refers to the relationship between the verb and reality. And we've seen previously that in the indicative mood, the mood of reality, it simply is indicating whatever is, or a fact, or a statement of reality. So in the indicative mood, we can see in Greek assertions made, questions can be asked, and facts can be stated. In the subjunctive mood, which is the mood that we're studying this week, it's the mood of possibility or probability, what could be, what might be, what is possible. It's not actually a fact yet, and it often is probable in the sense that it may or may not happen. And at times a sentence might even indicate some conditions that need to happen in order for that conclusion to occur. And all of these come forth in the subjunctive mood. So your verb would not be in the indicative, it would be in its subjunctive form as you look at it in BibleWorks. When you're translating the subjunctive, because it is a mood of probability or possibility, you want to use words like might or may when you're translating the verb. For example, in English, a sentence might say, I might read a book. So it's possible I'm going to read a book in the future, or even now, but I'm not actually reading the book yet. The subjunctive mood in verb tenses tend to come forth in the present and the aorist tense. There are some perfects, though that is quite uncommon. And so as we look at tense, remember we're not in the mood of reality, we're in the mood of possibility. And so aspect, again, is going to play quite the role for us in understanding or trying to interpret what might be being communicated in the Greek sentence we are translating. So present aspect could be a continuous action. It may not, but you want to obviously analyze the context and other statements and indicators that might be telling you what type of action the sentence is referring to. Aorist subjunctive, and as we know, the aorist tense is an undefined action, and luckily for us, the aorist subjunctive is the most common. And so if you do see a present subjunctive, you're going to look for other identifiers that might say that this is a habitual habit, or a habitual action that's taking place, or a gnomic action, and a kind of a timeless truth that would indicate that continuous nature of the verb or the aspect of the verb. There are a few pointers in the Greek that, again, as we're using BibleWorks, we may or may not need, or notice as much as we would if we were translating and looking at every letter in a sentence, translating the Greek. But often, instead of having may, and instead of having oo, which is the negation in the indicative mood that would precede a verb and indicate that it is not happening or negating it, in the subjunctive mood, you're going to see this word right here, may. So may would be the particle that's actually used for negation in the subjunctive mood. Now, you can see something that indicates an emphatic negation, and at that point you would see oo combined with may, and that can occur in the subjunctive, but again, may is the second letter. It's not gonna, you'll never see may oo, you'll see oo may, and so that can indicate the subjunctive, a subjunctive verb is following it, and oo may indicates a really strong negation, so we might translate that certainly not, or by no means, or never. That might be another strong negation. Another indicator that is very helpful when translating the Greek for the subjunctive mood is that you often will see the subjunctive preceded by certain words, and you begin to kind of get used to those words, and so when you see them, you actually start to think, I probably have a subjunctive verb coming up. And here are a few of those words. Henna, and that word is translated in order that, and often used in a particular type of subjunctive called the purpose, and we'll study that in just a moment. Aeon, which means if, which often occurs in something called a conditional subjunctive because it's setting up for if something happens, then something else may happen. Has on, whoever, hoton, whenever, and then you have hopu on, wherever. So all of those words, whoever, whenever, and wherever, already kind of in English make you think it's not really pointing to a particular person, a particular place, or a particular time. It's kind of elusive, which indicates that realm of possibility or probability. And then we also have heos on, but you see on in all three of these, as well as in the ending of aeon. And heos on is until, and again, that kind of is a little bit of conditional because until something occurs, something else may or may not occur. So looking at the particular and specific uses of a subjunctive, henna combined with a subjunctive verb, it indicates purpose. This particle, henna, is usually followed by the subjunctive, and again, it's going to indicate purpose. So sometimes you can actually add a few little clarifying words that might actually bring that part or that use of the subjunctive a little bit more overtly out in your translation. So here's an example. You might add in order that. You also could say something like for the purpose that, and then whatever the verb is indicating. A Greek example, tauta grapho human henna me hamartete. I write, grapho, these things is our demonstrative pronoun functioning as the accusative direct object of grapho. I write what? I write these things. To human, pronoun to you in the dative. I write these things to you. Henna me hamartete. Now notice we have henna. We also have the negation may, not u. And then we have hamartete. And if we were using Bible Works, you could scroll over that and see that it is a subjunctive. I write these things in order that, so that, for the purpose that, you all, is second person plural, might not sin or may not sin. Aeon plus the subjunctive. So here we're getting into the realm of conditional statements or sentences. Aeon meaning if, then if something plus the subjunctive might happen, you often will find that part in the beginning part of a Greek sentence, and then, or it may not be in order, because remember Greek sentences don't always have order, but you will have a clause. So aeon plus the subjunctive would be somewhere, and then you might find then the other part of the sentence together. So a particularly one class, this is called a third class conditional. There are actually first and second class statements as well, but the third class is the one, is a title that's been given by Greek grammarians for the one that occurs when we have aeon plus a subjunctive. Now typically aeon will be in what they call in the grammars in the protasis. That's the first part of the sentence, or the if clause, and it will be combined with a subjunctive verb. So you would have aeon and a subjunctive, and then when you look in the sentence and you notice the part that's the then clause, if this happens, if this might happen, then that's called the apodosis, the second part of the sentence. It's the last part, and it would contain the then or the result as well as the conclusion. The apodosis for this particular type of subjunctive could be in any tense or mood. So you really are only limited to finding the aeon plus a subjunctive in the protasis, and then any tense, any mood verb can be the then. So here's an example from 1 John 1:8. Aeon apomen, hati hamartion uk ekomen, heautus planomen kai he aletheia uk esten in hemen. So here we have our aeon plus the subjunctive, apomen. Now, if this was in the present tense indicative, that omega would simply be an omicron. But here we have apomen. If we say, or if we should say, so we have our subjunctive, if we should say that, hati, that, what are we saying? That ekomen, we have uk. So here, ekomen is a present active indicative verb, so it's okay to be negated with uk. Now the if we say is not being negative, it's the rest of that part, the protasis that's being negated, right? So we can have the subjunctive with if. in the apodosis, and then in the protasis, the conclusion, can be in any tense. So if we should say that we have no sin or have not sinned, hamartion is accusative, so it's the direct object, we have not sinned. We deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. Or we could do the continuous nature in our translation. We are deceiving ourselves, and the truth is not in us. So actually we have the if clause here, and echomen is part of that clause of I would say actually this whole first statement is part of the apodosis. Let me just correct myself there. And we do have an indicative verb in there, but we have aeon plus a subjunctive, clearly setting up the if portion. And then the result is, or the then clause is really the second part, right? We are deceiving ourselves and the truth is not in us. So we could not be deceiving ourselves or making a statement about the truth being in us unless it's all that protasis, that apodosis, the second part, is all subject to whether or not this first part happens, right? So there's your condition. You have to have that first part happen in order for the second part to be true or to occur. So that's why we have this conditional. We have a condition, and if the condition is met, then we're okay, and that other part will be so. But if the condition is not met, then that action in the apodosis, the last part, may never occur. There's also a use of the subjunctive called hortatory subjunctive. This occurs in the Hebrew language as well. And this is a subjunctive that would be in the first person singular or plural. It cannot occur in second or third person, but first person singular or plural, and it indicates sort of an exhortation. And so you often will add the keyword let, either let me if it's singular or let us in the translation. So here's an example. Agapetois agapomen allelus. Beloved ones, dative plural, beloved ones, agapomen, let us, there's our subjunctive, first person plural, let us love, and then allelus functioning as the object. Let us love one another. Otherwise, you would have the statement being translated, if you didn't identify this as a hortatory subjunctive, it would be sound almost like an indicative, and that wouldn't bring out the subjunctive, because you might translate it, beloved, we love one another. And again, if that was indicative in a mode of reality that actually was happening, it would not have been in the subjunctive. It would have been in the present tense. But here we have it, let us love one another. It's an exhortation. It's an encouragement. Hortatory subjunctive. Another example, prosukometha, let us pray. Lastly, we have a category called a deliberative subjunctive. The deliberative subjunctive is going to have a other marker in it that indicates there's a question. So you should see the semicolon in English indicating the question when this occurs. Occurs when a question is asked with using a subjunctive verb, and so therefore the answer is uncertain. It might indicate that you would deliberate or talk about or think about that particular possibility. Ton basileia humon stauroso. The king of you all, here ton basileia indicates that it's accusative, and then stauroso is our subjunctive, followed by the semicolon in English indicating a question, and it's first person, right? So shall I crucify your king, the king of you all? So again, it's indicating talk about it, let's think about it, let's deliberate about it, and that verb is in the subjunctive, so it's a question, but it's a question suggesting discussion or a probability of whether or not that's going to occur.